Welcome, one and all, to Pacific414 episode review. I am your host, Mike, and in this episode, I'm going to be giving you my reaction, my spoiler review of episode 7 of Chucky, Twice the Grieving, Double the Loss. Now, I'll probably go through a lot of these points quickly, so if I miss any points or go out of order, I do apologize. But in this episode, it picks up right where the last episode left off, except this time we're at the wake of Bree Wheeler. We see Jake, of course. We see Junior, Lexi. Devin shows up. Of course, Lucas is there. He's consoled by Lexi's parents. Although Lexi's mom is doing it for her own political gain, seeing as she's the mayor of Hackensack. And also, we see in this episode where it's young Charles Lee Ray and young Tiffany. They just purchased a place in Chicago, and they're talking about it, adding a few things. Chucky even says, "Not bad for our first rat hole." And while they're at this place in Chicago in this flashback, they do commit a few murders. They murder a pizza boy after he delivers deep dish pizza, and they commit the murder of a woman. Now, flashing forward to the present, we have Logan Wheeler, who is now the widower, Bree Wheeler, and of course, he's having a hard time. Depression set in, and he actually goes out and ends up getting drunk. He ends up returning home and passing out on the couch. Meanwhile, we have Devin, who is now staying at his aunt's, and he's going to be staying at his aunt's for about a week. And he also tells Jake that they should no longer be seeing one another. Of course, that devastates Jake because Jake feels, and even Lexi feels, that they need to stick together. Because if they're sticking together, it'll make it easier for them to fight off Chucky. We also catch up with Kylie and Andy on their quest to reach New Jersey in time to stop Chucky. And in this part of the story, Kylie and Andy end up having to stop at a gas station to get some gas. And Kylie ends up buying 2 pairs of gloves for both herself and Andy. Andy takes his gloves, puts them on, gets in the car, and ends up locking the door and leaving Kylie behind. Meanwhile, after Jake and Devin and Lexi have talked, and Devin has said that he should no longer be seeing Jake, Jake ends up going off on his own. And he does take some money out of Lucas's wallet as he heads toward a bus station. Meanwhile, what ends up happening is Junior is now under the influence of Chucky. That's right. Junior is now aware that Chucky is indeed a sentient doll due to the spirit of Charles Lee Ray. And Charles Lee Ray ends up grooming him as his next apprentice. Not in a good way. So then what ends up happening is Jake shows up at the bus depot and is sitting there waiting for a bus. He sees a guy walk in, and he's walking in with a good guy doll in the box, and he starts chasing the guy down. He ends up going up to the guy and saying, "What are you doing with that doll?" The guy says, "Leave me alone, kid. I gotta deliver it to this address." And the address he has to deliver it to is Charles Lee Ray's old house where his family used to live. The house where Nika is at. So Jake ends up bargaining with the guy, and giving him some money for the good guy doll. He ends up taking the good guy doll out of the box and beating the good guy doll over a railing and against the wall, and then ends up taking him with him. Meanwhile, Devin, who has packed up all his stuff and grabs his shoebox, takes out his taser, and he's cleared off all these different papers that he had on his bulletin board, and one of them happens to be of Charlie Ray's house up for sale. Well, we come to find out that Devin is on his way to Charles Lee Ray's old house. Why? Oh, it gets interesting as to why Devin is on his way. So, Devin ends up walking to Charles Lee Ray's house, ends up getting to the address, ends up breaking into the basement, and Nika, of course, hears glass break. And when he gets inside the house, Nika, of course, starts calling for him because by this time, the duct tape has started to come off her face. And Nika says, "You gotta help me, you gotta help me." So Devin goes to help her. But little does Devin know, but we, the audience, know that Nika carries part of Chucky's spirit. And there's also another thing that ends up happening. Is once Nika is free and she gets up, she ends up tying up Devin. And when Devin finally comes to, he sees all these good guy dolls lined up in a circle. So we've got that going. And getting back to Lexi and Jake. Jake ends up showing up at Lexi's house. The house looks like it's fully restored. And Lexi and Jake are having a conversation. Why? Because Jake shows up with that good guy doll, and Lexi says, "What are you doing here with that doll?" But, of course, I'm getting a little ahead of myself, too. Because the mayor, Lexi's mom, has a press conference before this happens. And during this press conference, she mentions that they're going to have a movie festival, and one of the movies that they're going to be showing the next day is the original Frankenstein from Universal. And of course, this series is produced by Universal Television, co-production of USA and SyFy. So we have that press conference, but here's why this press conference links to Jake and Lexi later on. It's because Caroline, Lexi's little sister, is asked a question, and she's asked, "Do you want to be mayor of Hackensack like your mommy?" And Caroline says, "Chucky told me to kill mommy." And of course, Lexi's there too. And like I said, this is happening during the day. And Lexi says to Caroline, "What did you say?" "Lexi told me to kill mommy. He told me to kill you. He told me to kill daddy." And of course, Lexi's jaw drops. So that brings us back to Jake and Lexi later on in the evening. So we get to where Lexi and Jake are talking. They're trying to get in touch with Devin. And Lexi even asked Jake, what was the address that this doll was supposed to go to, since Jake had told her that he got the doll from the delivery guy. He tells Lexi the address. Lexi looks it up on her phone and says, "Why is this doll being delivered to Charles Lee Ray's old house?" And then they try to get in touch with Devin. They can't get in touch with him. So they use a few other means, a few other apps to find out his location. And they find out that he's at Charles Lee Ray's old house. Their eyes widen. And they have to get a ride there. And they're waiting on an Uber. Meanwhile, like I said, you have Devin at Charles Lee Ray's house. He's coming too. He's seeing all the dolls. And then we cut to Junior back at the Wheeler's house. And drunk Lucas or Logan, whichever one you want to call him. I know it's Logan. I know Lucas was Jake's dad in the first episode, but again, I'm playing off what Chucky ends up saying in the episode because Logan actually comes to after passing out from all his drinking, starts coming up the stairs, and he starts hearing Chucky's voice along with Junior's voice. But that's not the first time in this episode we actually hear Chucky talking to Junior. Prior to Jake leaving the house, Chucky was talking to Junior. But that doesn't stop Jake from doing anything because Jake leaves without hearing Chucky speak at all. So Lucas goes into Junior's room and says, I'm sorry, Logan, I'm sorry. Like I said, and I'm going to get up to that point. But anyways, Logan goes into Junior's room and says to Junior, we need to talk. And of course, he's talking to him about hitting Jake and how he's got to control his temper. Otherwise, he's going to be thrown off the track team. And then Chucky decides that this would be a good time to spring to life. So he starts turning his head slowly and methodically, like The Exorcist. Although in this case, it's a doll. And of course says, hi, I'm Chucky. Want to play? And we cut to after commercial break of Logan trying to speak with Junior. And of course, Chucky announces himself. And Junior actually grabs Chucky and starts holding him out in front of him. Starts walking toward Logan. Slowly and methodically. And Logan's trying to figure out how Chucky's able to speak when Junior's mouth isn't moving. And then, under the influence of Chucky himself, Junior starts beating and bashing Logan and killing his father because his father chokes on his own blood. So, after that, we cut to Junior and Chucky. They're looking out the window after they put Logan's body inside a closet. And who should show up that they're piercing down on the driveway? Andy. Andy's got a gun. He has it loaded. And he walks up to the front door. He rings the doorbell. And it cuts. It cuts to next week's season finale. Now, what did I think of this episode? Well, compared to the other episodes, honestly, I thought it was okay. I did like the fact that we got a little bit more of the backstory of Tiffany and Chucky, Charles Lee Ray, arriving in Chicago. That's where the original Child's Play movie is set in 1988, Chicago. And I also like the fact that, we had Lexi, Devin, and Junior talking after the death of Kimberly Evans, and of course, talking about Bree and, her passing with both parents dead. Of course, Miss Fairchild being arrested last week. The detective, you had Oliver, and of course, the principal. So the town's on nerves, and kids are trying to do something about it, but the mayor herself is trying to brush everything under the rug as if nothing ever happened. So I like that aspect. I do wish that we could have seen a little bit more with Andy and Kylie, kind of as an audience, be given, or I should say, we should have been given their strategy when it comes to what they're going to do when they arrive to the house where at least one of the Chucky dolls are. Because they know that Chucky can split his spirit into different good guy dolls and different bodies. He can split them off. But Jake doesn't know. Devin doesn't know. Lexi doesn't know. And Junior doesn't know. And something tells me, and maybe I'm wrong, but something tells me that Junior is going to become Chucky's next victim. I don't know why. Or it could be a thing where under the influence of Chucky, as I've already stated, Junior is under Chucky's influence, that it ends up creating the new serial killer in Hackensack in the same vein as Chucky. And I don't know if the series has been renewed for a season 2. And right now, I'm not really worried about focusing on a season 2. So far, season 1 has been pretty good. And when I say pretty good, it's better than what I expected. Because when I heard about a Chucky TV series, a Child's Play TV series, I was going, okay, well, this probably won't be any good. And I've been impressed. Yeah, there have been some moments where, they've been eye-rolling moments, or there have been moments where you just go, why did they go in that direction? But overall, considering what the genre is, considering, what the property is, I've actually enjoyed it more than I thought I would. So, this episode, if I were to give it one of my ratings, best out of 5, I would say this was a 3 out of 5. It wasn't the best episode. It wasn't the worst. It was right there in the middle. I know they're trying to save things for next week's season finale, and who could blame them? And speaking of next week's season finale, I am going to try to do a live watch party. If I don't do a live watch party, I might just do a live review of next week's season finale. I haven't quite made up my mind yet as to whether or not it's going to be a live watch party or whether or not it's going to be a live review. As it gets closer, I'll let you know, but if you were to ask me today, it'd be a live watch party. It's probably not going to be as the episode's airing on the East Coast, seeing as I have a prior engagement. But as soon as that prior engagement is complete, I will then come live on my channel and I will give you my actual episode reaction to the episode as it's going on, and then also review that episode. Now, because I am going to be watching this after it's already aired on the East Coast, I will more than likely skip through the commercials, just to let you know. But it will still be a live reaction and then a live review of Chucky. So if you're interested in tuning into that, let me know in the comments. And if not, look to see that episode of PACIFIC414 episode reviews, specifically the watch party, next week, probably after I finish watching the episode. So I want to technically say around 11:30, but that could change. So overall, this 3 out of 5 episode. Yeah, there's some things that it just made me go, okay. Especially when Andy leaves Kylie behind in the gas station. It's like, Andy, I think you should have taken her with you. You're gonna need that backup. And then of course, with all the Chucky dolls at the house and Devin being there all by himself. And I say all by himself because he's basically surrounded by Chucky, even Nika. Nika's completely controlled by part of Chucky's soul, so it's not Nika. So Devin's outnumbered, and it'll be interesting to see which characters that we were introduced to in this first season actually make it out of the season finale, or maybe this next week's season finale is going to carry into the following season if there is a season 2. I don't know. I'm just guessing out loud. But overall, this episode, it's a 3 out of 5. Not the best, not the worst, but it is what it is. And that's how I got into this series. especially after reviewing the first episode where I said it was a 2.5 out of 5. You know, I can't expect too much from this series considering what it's based on, the IP and everything, the character. So I have to temper my expectations for the series, and that's what I've done. With that being said, this has been Mike for PACIFIC414 episode review. If you like what you saw here, give this video a thumbs up. If you didn't like what you saw here, give it a thumbs down. If you have any comments or questions, leave them down in the comment section below. If you like this video in general, go ahead and share it. And if you like the content here on this channel, whether it be PACIFIC414 episode reviews or my recent Ghostbuster Afterlife review or any of my other videos here on this channel, well then, hit that subscribe button. I would greatly appreciate it. Until then, I will see you all later. And as always, take care.